Friday! Hello! Hello, YouTube. Can we see the flashing lights? I don't see them. Hi! Welcome, everybody. I am Chrystelle Robinson Tiedemann. You can just call me Chrystelle, the host of the Love and Meaning podcast, and this is Friday Night Live Dive. In the podcast, we discuss living a happiness-forward life and creating the meaning in our lives. And on Friday Night Live Dive, here on YouTube, every Friday, 6 p.m. EST, we bring the topics to life. This is where we discuss and go deep into the contemplations. So welcome. Please come in and say hello. Oh, please come in and say hello. Sorry about that. Say hello as you come in and let us know what you're celebrating this week. I am so excited to be here. And I will go ahead and share. I feel like there's something weird in my hair. I will go ahead and share what I'm celebrating this week as people come in. And what I'm celebrating is connecting with human beings, the loving connection between human beings, that very special thing that happens in friendships, in between clients and coach, in all the different relationships in my life. Hi, Mom! Between my mom, I'm sending out a lot of condolences. I have, unfortunately, come across this week quite a few people experiencing loss, and it was sad. It was a bit of a trying week emotionally, and I'm really valuing deeply the connections that we do have in our life. So my major celebration is the beautiful relationships in my life, the new relationships that come in, the connections that happen, people trusting in me, sharing deeply with me. I feel so honored and touched to have this in my life. So what are you celebrating? What are you celebrating this week, Mom? So hi, everyone. Happy Friday. We're going to keep it dark and have the special lights on as we celebrate. I'm also celebrating feeling a lot better. And we're going to get into that in the topic of this week. So in the meantime, logistics. The podcast, Love and Meaning, drops every Monday at 8 a.m. EST here on my YouTube channel, on Spotify, and on Apple Podcast. And Friday Night Live Dive happens here on my YouTube channel, Goddess of Practicality, every Friday, 6 p.m. EST. I would love if you would give it a like. And to fill you in, the draw is still continuing for the podcast, right? For Love and Meaning. So on any of the platforms that you listen to, if you rate and review and take a screenshot of your review and email it to me at goddessofpracticality@gmail.com, you will be entered in to win two people will win a full 90-minute human design reading with me. And today's episode topic is pretty human design related, but we'll also talk about a couple of other things. And I would love to hear from you what you're celebrating. So Alana is celebrating good health and treasuring the relationships with family and friends. Same. We're very much on the same page. Yeah, it is. It's something that it almost can so easily slip by. I think we're both pretty good at appreciating the relationships in our life. We're pretty relationship forward people, but still, like on a really, really, really deep level, holding in your heart the amazing thing it is to have friendships. Sometimes it becomes very apparent to us in moments of loss, right? And the time that we have with the people in our lives, please hold them dear. Let them know how you feel about them, because it is a extremely precious thing. So I'm celebrating with you. We are flashing the lights. So we're celebrating connection. Everybody, as you come in, say hi and let us know what you're celebrating. And in the meantime, today's topic is all about self-care. So I feel like it really fits in. We are going to discuss, in the absence of questions, we're going to discuss episode 12, which was the sanctity of rest. And boy, is this a, I think, perfectly timed topic for right now. And this episode was very much focused on projectors in human design. I'm a human design projector. But it's actually for anyone. I'm going to put is it time? Should we put the lights up? I don't want it too bright. Okay. Let's have and we'll still keep the lights. If the lights are really bothering you, let me know, okay? So the topic is the sanctity of rest. And it is very projector focused because in human design, we have different energy types. And some energy types have a different relationship with the energy in their body. And for projectors, our energy is inconsistent. It's not that we don't have energy, it's just inconsistent. And so we tend to require more rest. Manifestors, reflectors, they also have inconsistent energy. And so we all have a different relationship with rest. But this also applies to generators and manifesting generators because generators, manifesting generators tend to misuse their energy as well. So honestly, this is a topic for everyone. And if you know nothing about human design, we can talk about rest still because I feel like it's time for a new paradigm when it comes to productivity. We have done the push, 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 go, go, go thing. For those of us that live in North America or the Western world, we've done this for a really, really long time. You know, the really pushing of our bodies, almost the overdoing of doing, right? Overdoing. And we've seen what happens to people. We've seen the burnout. We've seen the rampant autoimmune disorders. We've seen what's happened to women's reproductive. We've seen what happens, right? I am over the hustle. Amen. I am over the hustle. And that was the inspiration. This was the inspiration for this episode because I have had it with myself. So if y'all have had it with yourself, give me a heart. Like, I've had it with this need to overdo in order to prove to myself that I am accomplishing something because I'm not accomplishing more in the overdoing. Okay. None of us are. And this doesn't mean that I'm saying like, we're saying we're over the hustle, but it doesn't mean like, hey, there isn't benefits to the hustle, but you can even hustle and enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, this is different from the grind, the push, the just pass when your body is telling you it's had enough. I have been feeling under the weather for a while, and this week I started the challenge. So the podcast dropped on Monday, and I announced the rest challenge. And for the next 2 weeks, I am really focusing on listening to my body, on establishing more rest into, like, literally scheduling it in. And we're going to get into how that looks for different people. Okay. And it's so helpful when it's interactive with this topic because we all experience rest differently. And I would love for us to have a discussion on that because I can share from my perspective, but it doesn't mean what I do is what you need to do. But this kind of just going without listening to my body whatsoever, I'm done. And I don't know that it's a coincidence that I am Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 5 days into the rest challenge, and I'm feeling better. Things are starting to look up. So this was huge. This was huge. And I'm going to share with you my takeaways just from the 5 days because I've been tracking it. But let's start by talking a little bit about what this whole maybe moving away from the hustle, as Synth said. Like, what does that even mean to you, Synth? Like, share, what does that mean to you, moving away from the hustle? So I can say that I've had this unconscious belief that, like, in order to prove to myself that I'm doing well, that I'm achieving something, that I can pat myself on the back and say I've done a good job, is like I'm doing more and more and more and more and more. I feel like there's a bit of quantity over quality, there's a bit of you stay up late to finish. There is not so much a matter of really paying attention to holistically how you feel about what you're doing. It's just the outcome, just the product, not the process of how you got there. Cynthia says, thinking that by doing more, I'll get where I need to be faster. Amen. Exactly. I have had this false belief that if I do more, I get to where I want to be faster. And my very first indication that this wasn't exactly true for me was actually in high school. And I was mirrored this. So Mom, I would love to hear your insight on this, because I was very much mirrored this by my mom. She would like stay up late and literally like be falling asleep on herself, but like just stay up late to push through to get it done, even though it would cost her so much the next day to be exhausted. You know what I mean? So me with my ADHD and like, oh my God, the studying and stuff, like I would push myself to stay up late just to say that I put in the hours of studying, but the information didn't even go into my brain. And it was my best friend in high school. It turns out she also has ADHD. We didn't know that at the time. But she used to tell me, like, why don't you just go to bed and then wake up early and be fresh? And I'm just like, I got to finish. I got to get to the end of the chapter. I had to redo the chapter the next day because none of the information stayed in my head. But I would push through just to say that I did it, because I thought that that's what you did. And I thought that if I pushed through, I would have the outcome. But it didn't actually make me learn more, right? That's not how it works. It's like what actually works best for your energy. And it's so freaking hard for me. Like, it's still hard for me to this day. I know this. I've now learned human design. I know that I'm a projector. I know that projectors need a lot of rest. And still, it's very hard for me to not push through and put in the extra hour and realize that from a rested place, I can do so much more in a very short period of time rather than just drag myself through the tasks, So it's time. I think the whole push for people are independently moving away from the 9 to 5. People are starting their own businesses. I feel like more than ever in my life personally, I'm seeing people become entrepreneurs just because they're done. They're done with being on other people's timelines. And we are much more interested in a quality of life. Like my generation, like our fathers were the really like really bust your butt and push through. That's like the push through, bust your butt generation. I remember my dad telling me that I think he slept an average of 5 hours for like the most of like my childhood, like those middle years into adolescence. That was it. And it's just, he had to do what he had to do. And I appreciate that. And the thing is, it does work, but we sacrifice our health. We sacrifice our quality of life. And I think that we're learning a different way now. And for those of us here that have tried it differently, Synth, what are the outcomes that you're seeing? Like, what is different when you're trying it a different way? From just this week, so this is what I did for just this week, okay? So one, I went to bed earlier. I decided that I'm going to bed earlier. And so I got about on average 7 hours of sleep per night. The other thing that I do that I realize is so, so helpful for me is part of my gift is kind of this connection with source, like this tapping into an otherness, But when I'm almost moving my body too much and like going with this like pressure inside of me, there's a disconnect. Like I don't hear it anymore. I don't hear the like there's a message that comes through there's like a little piece of information that comes through for me, like, it could be about a topic that I've been working on, right? That I want to discuss, or it can be for a client, right? I have a reading coming up on Monday for a peer, somebody that I'm in a coaching group with. And I've been working on looking at her chart. And I love to take time with the chart because different things will come out to me. And in that space, something really cool connected for me in her chart, but it came out of nowhere. So what I implanted into my schedule this week was, so in the morning, I always meditate. And I've opened it to listen to my energy and decide that I'm either going to meditate or I'm going to contemplate something, meaning sit there in quiet and kind of let my mind take me to a place, but not for an outcome, just kind of a stream of thought, and to follow the stream of thought, and like brilliance emerges, guys. Okay. So I said that I would do that, and I implanted 4 places throughout my day. That contemplation time, one, my nervous system, my entire body has relaxed, and it's allowed me, I feel, to feel more rested. So I wonder how much of the tiredness was related to simply needing my mind to be quiet. So that's 1. 2, the connections that I'm making. Oh my God, I have written absolute brilliant gold that I'm going to be turning into teachings. Like, things have just been coming through for me. And then the other big thing is that I realized I was so plugged in all the time. I always was listening to a course. I was always listening to a podcast. I was always listening to something, and I realized that with other people's voices constantly in my head is actually other people's energy. And that clogs me up. And I can't feel my connection to source. I can't feel my own nudges. And so when I decided that I would have mostly quiet time with my own ideas, and everything came through. Elena says, some of us are naturally nocturnal. Dad and I never slept more than 5 hours a night after all of the chores and overlooking all the schoolwork of the 3 of you, and then just the 2 of you. So my mom's referring to my adopted sister. She's older than us, so she was, she left the house earlier. On weekends we made up with our sleep. Do you think that you ever actually make up for the sleep though? Because I find that, let's say that I do that, I push through, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to make up for it on the weekend. I personally don't think it makes up. Like, you can sleep half the day. 1, I always feel like I wasted the whole day. And then 2, I'm still tired. Like, to me, it takes like multiple days of rest to make it up. You can tell me what your experience has been, but this is the thing. They did what they had to do, right? Like, you guys did what you had to do. It doesn't always feel like a choice. And I say that inner work is a luxury because of these things. Like, my parents busted their asses so that I could have the choices that they didn't have, So we have to do what we have to do. This is the reality of it. But when we get to a place, like, let's say without the kids, because I've seen mom, like, past the time when Shay or I are even home, I still see you push yourself sometimes to stay up to, like, clean for who? You and dad? Like, it doesn't even matter. Do you still find yourself falling into the like that old paradigm? I know that you've gotten better with it, but you had to teach yourself to stop doing it, didn't you? No, now I know we didn't. I was continually tired. Yeah. I even remember, like bags, like, I remember you guys looking more tired. So totally. The best thing, Cynthia says, the best thing I do when I get home is to just be in silence. Yes. It helps process my day and gives me the ability to check in on me. Exactly. And for a while, I didn't realize how important the silence was. I didn't realize, for me as a projector as well, being horizontal helps. So it's not even that I'm sleeping, but me lying flat, there's something about that where, like, the channels just open. Kathy says, hi, Kath. Hey, beautiful. Hey, all from what I remember, research shows that you can't catch up on sleep. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Like I had no idea. So I thought that so this is what I thought, because I love like learning, right? So I always had a podcast on, I always had a course on, I always had a YouTube something on, and it's all really good information. It's all really good teachings, like things that I want to learn, that I actually want to spend my time doing. So I thought that because I'm chilling out and I'm listening to it, then I'm resting. I didn't realize that my whole body was still charged with someone else's energy. And I didn't realize that I wasn't hearing my own nudges. Things as simple as, for example, this might sound weird, but I'm a splenic authority in human design. And so, meaning that the way that I best make decisions is through this quiet voice that comes in out of nowhere. And it just kind of comes in, drops a mic on me with like, do this, and then takes off. This is how my intuition works. Okay. It's very intuitive. When I'm quiet, I can literally hear something say, go read blank book. This happened to me on Tuesday. Okay, I just like literally got chills. So I even, like, this is controversial, but remember I said that I decided that I'm even going to not necessarily meditate in the morning. It's either meditate / contemplate, depending on what I feel. So that morning it told me contemplate. So I sat in silence, like Cynthia saying. It told me then, so I went to sit. It said, go pick up the Gene Keys book. I went and I picked up the Gene Keys book, and it said, look for what you're feeling right now. And the feeling that I was feeling was confused. So I went to confusion, and there's like Gene Keys is like a spin-off kind of almost of a more feminine version of human design. And I went to that Gene Key associated with the shadow of confusion. I'm not going to get into it now, but let me tell you how it was exactly the thing that I needed to read. I had the hugest breakthrough about what I've been going through in the past 3 weeks in terms of my body and my health and what's happening with me. Because I heard something tell me, go read the book. If I had plugged in that meditation, I would have been busy meditating, right? So I'm not saying meditating is bad, but I would have been so busy following my routine that I wouldn't have listened to the thing that I actually truly needed in that moment. Where was I? Where were we? The best thing I do when I get home. No, I said that. Neither did you, right? You didn't know that this is about the silence. You know, I used to always have the TV on. Exactly. So it's like, it's just in the background. It's not doing anything. It's just in the background. We are, especially if you have open centers, right? Like almost nobody has a completely full design. You usually have at least one open center. So this isn't just for the projectors, the manifestors, and the reflectors. Though for us, it's extra so. You are absorbing those energies from everything in our environment, right? Hey, Synth, I do silence in the car. So Kathy says that she does silence in the car, no radio, no music on. Like, I wonder what happens. So you're probably slightly in this like contemplative meditative state, right? Things just come to you. And there's something about driving that is hypnotic, right? So you're probably very attuned in that state because you're paying attention to the road and the rest of your mind gets to just be open. Wow. I'm really interested to hear more about that. Alana says, I just didn't realize it was affecting us. Dad ended with narcolepsy and I have a hard time sleeping early. Thank you for sharing that. That's big, Mom. Yeah. And the thing is that years and years and years and years and years and years of these patterns, like it has to have an effect on the body. And I feel this is something that I'm annoyed by, but also I'm realizing is a gift. I have a very sensitive apparatus. Like I just have a sensitive body. I'm sensitive to foods. I'm sensitive to lack of rest. I'm sensitive to a lot of things. And I've been very frustrated with how exhausted I've been and under the weather that I've been. But at the same time, the contemplation that came through from that gene key for me was I'm actually so grateful for the fact that my body puts me on my ass sometimes, because it forces me into these surrendered places to hear what it needs. And every single time I'm surrendered into that place, every single time I just let go and I'm like, oh, fine, brilliance comes through. The challenge now is for me to not need to put myself on my ass to get the message, like to maintain this as my way of life. Elena says, I am determined to ensure that my children had a better life than I did, and to ensure that your education would be your independence. Thank you, Mama. You did. You did. And we're so grateful. This is why inner work is a privilege. Like, it is through what my parents have sacrificed and what they've done that I am in the position that I am today. And that is why I will be damned if I will not be brave and build the life that I want exactly, because this is what they did it for. And I'm going to do that. And I love, I've heard that from different teachers that your own healing heals 7 generations forward and 7 generations back. And I know that just from the things that my sibling and I have been able to learn by the privileges that we were given, I've seen now reflected back to my mom and my dad. Cynthia says, I actually got my best ideas when I'm treating clients. It's quiet and both parties are focused on being present. Ooh. Okay, let's get into talking about the different ways of rest. This is such a perfect segue. Okay, so for me, this is what this looks like. Okay, and so for those of you that know your design, I know Cynthia is a manifesting generator. I have been working desperately on figuring out both my parents. They don't know their times of birth, so we don't know what they are. But we are pretty sure that Daddy is a classic generator. And Mom, I have no idea, but I feel like, because Mom, you're so like me in so many ways, in terms of I've seen you crash. Like, it's like you'll go, but there's always this crash period, whereas like Dad can do the push through thing. It's not that he's not suffering. And this is the thing generators do, is they push themselves through, but they're going to feel it. I see that. I see like the actual crash. So I'm not, all I know is for sure Mom's a non-energy type. So whether it's a projector, I don't think you're a reflector. So probably a projector or a manifestor. I'm not sure. But this is interesting, Cynthia. I also wonder if, like, you've been a massage therapist for quite a few years now, where I feel like you probably go into flow, right? Like, do you always have to use your brain at the forefront to do? There's certain techniques and things that your body's almost doing for you, right? I wonder if you're literally like in that, if you know, Kath, I feel like if anybody would know, it would be you. Theta or beta? I don't know. Like, you know, when you're like with the wave that you go in a deep meditative state, I wonder if partially you're in there and in that open state. Yeah, exactly. So I wonder if you're in that different brainwave and things are able to come in. So one of the other beautiful things that this reminds me of is that, for example, when I'm doing this, when I'm coming live, okay, when I am even sitting down and thinking of what I want to talk about in a teaching, or when I'm even getting prepared, you know, to do a one-on-one, like, it is alpha or theta. Okay. It's alpha or theta. That's like the wave that we're in. So I have a feeling that when you are in the midst of it and your body's taken over, the music is going, the scents are there, that person, they're breathing. That's the other thing, Sid. You know that your breath is controlled, right? Like, you cannot practice without having a control of your breath. You are definitely probably going into an alpha or a theta state. And so your mind opens. We have different accesses to this, right? And so when I'm going live, like Cynthia's talking about when she's at work and she's a registered massage therapist and things come through for her, there's something that happens in her body in this flow state. For me, this is not work. This is not work. right? Like this is play for me. Like this is fun. I feel lit up. It's like the other rest of the time, I'm doing all of that, like all of that resting for this to come through, you know? So in this place, I'm in flow. I'm in flow. It's just like boom, 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 which is very, very similar. But those moments of quiet, those moments of lying down, those moments of just sitting in silence, like these are all the things that allow us to get into these flow states. And then it's like a reconnection. So when I'm in the flow state, I further have things come through. It's like this whole loop that happens. But if we just overdo it, there's no space. There's no space for any of that. And it's really amazing to me that I've experienced it multiple times. What happens when I slow down, right? Like I know it's good for me. I know things come through, but I still get this kind of anxiety that I shouldn't do it. You know, like I should be doing something else now. So I want to acknowledge that like this isn't easy, even though we know it. Like there's that voice that's like, you got to do something for the kids, or, you know, well, I could be cleaning the basement right now, or, well, you know, the lawn really needs taking care of. So there's always this like thing going in the background that's telling us we're doing something wrong. While, at least for me, I can see how good it is for me to do it, and I'm still has this voice going. That is our conditioning. Like that's how strong those messages have been implanted in us, but it's not true because we think we're going to lose the momentum. Oh my gosh, we're coming back to that. Kathy says, my best ideas come during review or stepping away and reflecting on how to approach a problem. This usually applies to work or studying. More challenging with my day and with my day-to-day managing home and family. Exactly. So these are different. Projector here, manifesting generator and generator. So this is 3 different types now that we're talking. And all of us find our intuition, our connection with source, our connection with ourself through a rested state, through hearing our own something rather than that of something else, of someone else, you know? And the key here to clarify is like, this isn't about thinking hard about something. And so, Kath, your statement there really makes me think of that, because my best ideas come during review or stepping away or reflecting. I feel like that's a very similar state to contemplation. The difference is there isn't necessarily like an outcome, right? You're reviewing, it's complete. It's more like I'm looking it over, and then boom, that piece comes through. If you were like, I need to get this, that's never when it comes. At least for me, that's never when it comes, right? And then you're like, all right, I'm going to step away from this. I'm going to walk away and like make a snack. You're in the middle of making the snack and it's like, oh my goodness, this happens. Eureka moments are known to happen in the shower, right? I think there's one more place. I don't remember what it is, but the shower often comes to us when we're in this relaxed state. Our brain is able to make these connections. But just like Cynthia said, we are afraid that we are going to lose the momentum. I think you nailed it. That's exactly what it is. If I'm in the going of it now, if I stop now, that's it. I'm going to lose it. So this reminds me of the episode Brain versus Consciousness. This is where we need our consciousness. This is where we need that most brilliant, most intelligent, most connected part of ourself that says to us, I trust that it will come through for me. I trust that it will come through. I trust that I've done enough. I know Kathy Ann and I have talked about this a lot when it comes to like studying and reviewing. It's like trusting that you've done enough, right? And that the overdoing isn't necessary. And Melanie Ann Lair likes to say something, and I love that because I'm a very forgetful person. She says that when I'm in a conversation with her sister, for example, you just chat. So just think about any of us having a conversation. We talk and talk and talk. We go from this topic to 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 this topic. We're all over the place. We never worry that we're going to forget the end of what we wanted to say when we've gone off on another tangent, right? She says, I am willing to forget. I am willing to forget. And I'm willing to trust that what will come through will come through. What needs to come through will come through. But we don't carry that when we go into like a work situation, a studying situation. I could prepare for my lives or for one-on-ones or for readings with like this extreme amount of notes. Like I could sit here and just read to you guys on a sheet. Like this is what the topic is for today, but there's no flow. There's none of that part where it's like the brilliance happens in this interaction where I get to just let source come through me. That doesn't happen. So I have to be willing to forget and trust that whatever I forgot is fine. I can bring it up at another time. I'm willing to allow the connection to come in from the people that I'm talking to, from source, from my passion. And every time it is such a better outcome, such a better outcome. So this week where I have taken so much more time to be quiet, I've added these contemplation states in, has been one of my most productive. In terms of the content. So I have to create content for my Instagram, the content that I've created. I'm currently working on a special offer and how far I've gotten on that. Like all these behind the scenes things that I'm working on. I'm in multiple courses working on that. Like my productivity has been so high, but I've taken a lot less time. And it just blows my mind how easy it is to forget that. And I think that that's what it is. I think Cynthia nailed it. We think we are going to lose the momentum. It's amazing. What do you think is even behind that? Further, what's deeper behind that? So I love this. Like it really came through for me, the willingness to forget and the trusting that it's enough. But there's something behind, I need the momentum. There's like a belief, like I don't have enough energy. I don't have what it takes. I'm not going to be enough. There has to be something underneath there, right? That makes us feel like we desperately need to hold on to the momentum. I guess there's also the part where it just feels good, right? It feels good to be in that mode. It's almost like I'll have to convince myself to do this. I'll have to convince myself to go into this mode again. I think partially, maybe you guys can pull out more, but I feel like I'm getting to partially where, okay, this is what it is. So in the episode, I talk about aligned action. Aligned action. And I think this is the difference. I feel like when it's not aligned action, you need momentum. So aligned action is the natural doing that comes from an aligned state when you're in alignment. So when we're in these flow places, when you sit in the silence and you get that download, when you are doing the review and the thing just comes to you and write that down. You didn't need to build momentum to go and write down that brilliant note. That is aligned action from that place. So for me, aligned action often looks like I'm sitting in contemplation. I have the topic that is important to me, or I often kind of just review my own life, like what life is throwing at me. So for me, I was contemplating how I've been feeling exhausted, exhausted, and how my body has been out of whack and what's going on with me. And I got the nudge to open the Gene Key book. I went and I looked up the Gene Key. I read it, I sat with it, I contemplated, and all of this brilliant stuff came through for me. The aligned action from there was to grab my phone, open voice notes, and let it rip. And I have everything for, like, I'm working on a masterclass, and it all came through. That's aligned action. So where I would need momentum is if I'm like, you need to sit and work on the masterclass. You need to go and you need to sit down and work on the masterclass. And so I need to like build up the energy inside of me that's like, okay, we're going to go and do it. And that's where I feel like I would need momentum rather than just letting the aligned. Nothing could have stopped me. Nothing could have stopped me from either opening my journal. I both journaled, like in writing, and I also have notes written in my phone, and I also have voice notes. Nothing could have stopped me from doing it. That is aligned action. So where do you guys notice where you use momentum versus aligned action? Cynthia says, personally, yes, it does feel good, but also I feel like I'm doing it alone. So how can I stop? Personally, yes, it does feel good, but also I feel like I'm doing it alone. So how can I stop? Tell us more about that. What do you mean? Do you mean like who else is going to do it if I don't do it? Is that what that means? Kathy says, I want to learn to trust, be more willing to forget. I'm in constant hustle with the kiddos and the fam obligations, worried I'll miss the opportunity. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if I dare say, I feel like I've already seen you. I feel like I've already seen you learn to trust more and be willing to forget. If we think about tests specifically, I feel like there's more of a willingness to say, I've studied enough. So I feel like that's a little bit of it, like the trusting in I've done enough. And if we want to talk about lines a little bit in terms of profile lines in human design, Kathy is a 1-3. And the 1 lines, you guys, anybody who has a 1 in your profile, you guys are all about foundation, right? You are all about, really doing the research because you build the foundation of things. But there is a difference, and this was something brilliant that I was studying this week. There is a difference between I am seeking out research, right? I am building research. I'm doing my research to a point where me, the line 1, you guys, you tap into yourself and you're like, I have enough foundation that I need to share my gift versus I have to keep doing this foundation to prove to blank I've done enough. It comes from 2 different places. So I feel like the trust comes when I'm building this foundation. I've done enough to do what, like, from myself. Like, myself is the one that's saying, like, I know this is enough for what I can do, right? Versus an outside decider doing it for someone externally looking or validating it. Okay, so Cyn says, yes, personally, yes, it does feel good, but also I feel like I'm doing it alone. So how can I stop? And Alana says, that's how I feel. No one will do things as well as I can. Okay, so both of you. I love this. So this, I find myself experiencing this more married and living with my husband. So there are things that I can find myself easily getting myself to be annoyed, right? So it's not the same as when I'm doing it alone. And obviously, Elena, you're married. So it's again, but all 3 of us, so single, not single, having the same experience, right? There is this feeling of, I need it to be this way. I need it to be this way. This is what I find for myself. I need it to be this specific way. But when I step back, there's a difference between like, it has to get done. There's a difference. It has to get done. And I need it to be this way. There is a difference. So, oh, bye, Mom. Okay. And you can come back and catch the replay and you can listen to it with him. But we'll talk about the rest of it. Have a good time at church. So there's a difference, I find. So I have to check in with myself. And if it's like, I need it to be this way, well, then guess what? If I need it to be this way, then I need to do it. I need to ask myself, do I need it to be this way? What is the thing that I'm actually pushing for here? Is it that the house is truly an absolute disaster and so this needs to get done? Or is it a matter of like almost being obsessive about the way that I want it to be done and I want him to do it and like I can be nagging about it, but it can be fine? Like, can it just be fine that it's just not exactly the way that I want it? I have to check in with myself because there is a difference. And I can find myself not even knowing the difference between it needs to get done and it needs to be this certain way. Because if you need it to be this certain specific way, well then, yes, you've set it up that who else can do it? You've created it in a way that it must be done that way. Well, then, yes, you are the one to do it. How can you expect someone else to do it the way that you've decided that it needs to be? But if it's a matter of this needs to get done, then that's a different story. And that's two things. One, how you're managing between you as a partner, right? Like, we can get into the discussion of like delegating different things to each other, like whoever does it. Maybe it's time that we pay someone to do it. If that's something that you guys can afford, there's ways. And if it's just you, for me, if it's when I was alone and I just needed to get done, there is a way that I could torture myself through something. And then there was a way where I could do it in an aligned way. So an aligned way for me, even though it wasn't necessarily inspired action, it can be inspired action from the place of, I love having a clean home. I love when my apartment looks pristine versus, ugh, this is disgusting. I'm the only one here. I have to clean it. It's so gross. Like I'm by myself and like I'm the only one who has to clean and I hate doing this and like fine. It's such a disaster and there's so much for me to do. I can go about it in a way where it feels like complete drudgery versus I can go about it in a way where I love a pristine home. I love having an environment that feels really, really good for me to look at and to feel comfortable to be in. And I feel so grateful to have this space, to have this home, to have these cushions, to have this couch, to have this floor. And I want to respect it and respect myself and keep it a certain way. And from that place, it is much easier for me to carve out the next 30 minutes dedicated to sweeping up and mopping the living room with some music on and blah, blah, blah. There's so two different ways to look at it. Like, oh, there's nobody else here to do it. Fine, I have to do it. Versus I have the privilege of this home. I know that this needs to get done. It is on me to do it, but I'm doing it because I love having a nice home. And then when it's the opposite, which I found for me now, like my life is very different than it was when I was single. The house is a mess far more often than it is. And I don't even have kids yet. So imagine when you do have kids. One of the first things I was freaking out about is like how dirty the apartment was. And then I was like, I did this actual priority assessment in there's this beautiful exercise. If anybody is interested, I can share it in the show notes. It's amazing. I actually went because I've been torturing myself for months about it, right? But the house is messy. The house is messy. The house is messy. The apartment's messy. The apartment's messy. I don't have time. I just don't have time. My life is crazy. I don't have time. I did this assessment on my values. And where cleaning up and stuff came out in terms of my priorities was by nowhere at the top. The other thing that was there was working out. I was beating myself up that I wasn't working out. Beating myself up. And in my values, it came out to be number 4. So actually, the way that things were going down when I was finding time to clean the house was actually a perfect match for my values. It wasn't the most important thing to me. And when I looked at it from that place, I wasn't tortured by the mess in the same way. So I'm not talking like, okay, let your place be a pigsty. This is not what I mean. But we mentally torture ourselves over these expectations of what it's supposed to be like, but it doesn't even match what is the most important to you. If the most important thing to you is to spend time with your family, I am happy to spend time with my family and have the living room be messy for 4 more days, because my priority is being the best mom, having a really good time with my kid, blah, blah, whatever it is. That's just an example, right? When I started to look at it in that way, it felt very different. It felt very, very different. And so what is a different way possibly, Cynth, that even looking at I'm the one to do the cleaning? Is it the same thing when you look at it from a perspective of I love keeping a pristine home? And yeah, it's on me to do it. And look at this place that I have, you know? I'm happy to keep my place this way. And if it's not a priority, then whatever. Or if it's something that you absolutely hate doing, you hire it out. I'm not a fan of cleaning, but love cleaning at home alone when listening to an audiobook or YouTube coach. Oh my God, I'm the same way. Mine's music. I can't clean without like wiggling my body. I can't. Like dancing and cleaning are synonymous to me. So I've learned to make it fun. I think I'd be freaking lying if I said that I love to clean. I think I'd be lying. But I do 85% of the cleaning in my house. And I have my husband. He's there with me. And I still do most of the cleaning in the house. But the checks that I had to give myself, like the internal checks that I had to give myself, is you clearly care far more about how it looks, because he's not sitting there and torturing himself over it. You are. So if it's your value and it's your priority, then do it. And if it's not, then don't. And if it's something that needs to get done, there's a certain level of adult maturity that we require. Like, we aren't kids anymore. It's not a matter of like, oh, I know the chores. Like, we have to have a certain level of maturity when we have our own homes, we have our own spaces, we are grown-ups, right? And so with that level of maturity, I know it has to get done. I know I'm the one to do it. How can I make it fun? And to be honest with you, I freaking love that dance time. Like, it becomes an enjoyable experience. I could also set up the whole rest of my week to make sure that that's a piece of shit experience. So if I haven't been resting the whole time, if I try to stick cleaning in on the day that I need to review, on the day that I have 3 clients to see, on the day that I need to create my post, that I need to publish the next podcast, of course I'm not going to be able to have a good time, right? So even though it's not the same thing as aligned action, inspired action, as when I just get the inspired action to write something, to write the most incredible teaching or something like that. It's not the same inspired action. But can I set up myself to operate in a way where even the actions that are planned, that it's coming from my choice, that it's coming from an aligned way, because I am aligned with a pristine home or a clean home or a home I'm proud of. I'm not aligned with, I'm the only one that cleans around here. This is torture. It's so hard. Ugh. Being an adult is so hard. Like, I'm not in alignment with that. I'm not. And the actual feeling that comes from when you're done it, like, Kath, how do you feel when you're done cleaning like that? I genuinely sit down on my couch for like 10 minutes and just look at it and feel proud. Like, you would think that I created a work of art. I'm like, look at that, When I come at it from that place, I get to feel proud that I actually celebrate what I've done. when I come at it from this tortured place, it doesn't feel the same way. What's coming up for you, Synth? Do you resonate at all? Does it feel like, yeah, like, of course, there's things that aren't just like, it's not fun all the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not fun to have to drive the kids everywhere. But is my value system that my kids are involved in really awesome extracurricular activities, and obviously they don't drive. So this is a priority to me. It is important to me to be able to take my kids to the things that enrich their lives. Looking at it from that perspective is very different than I have to be in traffic again. You know, we can make these small switches. We can make these like small switches. And I feel like this topic is about the sanctity of rest. I feel like it's the same thing. It's almost an internal rest that we give in our brains. I feel like we stress our minds when we make tasks extra difficult for ourselves. So I feel like an extension of having this different relationship with rest is also having a different relationship with the way that we think about the things that we have to do. What do you guys think? Like, what's coming up for you? I definitely I've noticed that I really had to focus on that when I'm not single anymore. I live with somebody, and I'm not the only one who's making my mess. I actually found it easier when I was single, because there's something about knowing that I'm the only one that has to do it, where it's like blah blah blah. But I can get into a bit of a nasty place in my mind if I'm not careful, when it's about like who should have done it when, you know? And that is not a priority to me, to be like that. That is not a priority for how I want to be in a relationship. You know what I mean? It's just like, these are the things that have to get done, right? It's kind of like, imagine every time that we had to go pee or number two, we were just like, oh, this again, you know, like, it's just a part of life. It's just a part of life. Like, we just do it. There are some things that are a part of adulting, like, where it's got to get done, and we can learn to just kind of get into these ruts with ourselves about torturing ourselves about the things that probably, if we think about 10 years ago, we were looking forward to having, you know, like, I wish I had an apartment that I could have to clean by myself. Wish I had an apartment. Like, it's so easy to forget that. And then we get there and it's like, ugh, ugh, ugh to everything. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. At least it's been extremely, extremely helpful for me. So I want everyone to contemplate, like, what would it look like for you? So if you allowed more rest into your week in a way that worked for you, what would that look like? So, for example, if it is that when I come home from working with clients, I sit in silence on the couch, can I make sure that that's something that I'm prioritizing? So for me, if I show you guys, I've literally put it into my calendar. Like, I have put it into my Google Calendar, like, contemplate, meditate, do yoga. Like, I'm adding it into my everyday to remind myself, because right now it is not normal to me. I have hustle programming. Even though my body wants nothing to do with it, I still have the programming. So I'm putting it literally in there as a reminder. What are the things for you? So those are my things, right? I said meditation, contemplation time. I have been incorporating yin yoga, which is so cool. And I'm learning it from this amazing, she's also a projector. Her name's Amanda Helen. She's on YouTube. She's this amazing coach. But yin yoga is basically like feminine energy yoga. It's the best way I describe it, but it's all about being slow. I'm incorporating that. I'm part of my even rest is like listening to my body and what it wants to eat, not just putting things into my mouth. What does it want to eat? So, like, listening. An organized house feels like a gift to the family, the kids, when it looks beautiful. It's a work in progress, but I try to remember it doesn't have to be perfect. Mwah. Beautiful. Do you hear the pride in that? That statement is in alignment with your values. That is an aligned truth about something that just needs to get done. And from that place, it's so much easier to get it done. But it's also so much easier that when you can't get it done that day, because it doesn't have to be perfect, you don't have to do the beating yourself up thing, you know? Like, honestly, there's almost something absolutely precious about a beautiful mess. Like when the kids, like, obviously I don't have them yet, so I know that that's totally annoying when you get to the place of like, it's been 3 days in a row and you've left this truck by the stairs. Are you trying to murder me? Like, that's not, but just the joyful mess of like seeing that the picture that they just drew, and then there are little moments that we could take in and just feel the joy of it, you know? Like there are times where I have looked at our messy kitchen and been so, especially like my husband, especially in the wintertime, he likes to do roast dinners. And looking at these dishes get like the caked on, like they're the ones you have to soak. Like there's just something I appreciate about the beautiful mess that we made because of this meal that we're having together and this time that we get to spend together. And yes, it is not the most amazing time to scrape those dishes, but just in those little moments, just to like, just recognize the privilege and the joy of it, you know, and the thing that there is to appreciate behind it. So what are the things? What are the things that you guys want to incorporate into your week? You want to implant them that will help you, honestly, help you in your productivity. You don't have to write it here. Feel free to put it in the chat if you want to, but I want you to think about it. So I started the rest challenge for myself on Monday, and I said I would do it for 2 weeks and then I would check in with you guys again in the podcast. And I know the things that I am trying to incorporate. Those are the things that work for me. I'm also adding in reading time. So reading in the evening, so in bed. And the other major thing that I've added in is, and this is pretty special for projectors, so all of you projectors out there, we rest best, like we sleep best from a rested state. I know that sounds weird, but it's actually very important for us to kind of lie down, be quiet, kind of lie down, even be horizontal for 30 minutes or an hour. So for me, like I'll sit and I'll read, or lie and I'll read. For sometimes I just lie there, period, and I let my mind wander. And if I go into sleep from that place, the quality of my sleep. So the thing is that for projectors is that you tend to wake up in the energy you went to bed. So if we run ourselves ragged and go to sleep, we wake up tired. For generator types, y'all are different, especially Manny Gens. What I want you to think about is for you personally. So rest isn't just the breaks that you're taking. It's very important for your relationship with rest that you let your energy run out before you go to bed. So I often tell my manifesting generators to work out before bed. Or my husband likes to read before bed. That is a good one that lets his energy run out. If he just goes to lie, let's say I'm going to just lie down. If he just goes to lie down with me, he will not fall asleep. And I will go to bed like an angel and like just be out like a light, you know? That doesn't work for him. He needs to run his energy out. So our relationships with rest are different. So I want you guys to contemplate for yourselves. What are you going to add in? And then I want you to share with me. I want to hear it. So come back to the chat and put it in there once you've thought about it. Share it under the podcast. Remember that you can ask your questions in the podcast and we will cover it on Friday Night Live Dive. So in any of the episodes underneath, scroll down to the bottom. You can type in your questions, type in your comments. You can even voice note them. And if you are watching on YouTube, just put your questions and your comments right in there. So for anybody catching this on the replay or that you're here live, I would love to hear it. I would love for you to tell me what your things are that you're going to add in to your schedule. And the thing is not to make this difficult for you, right? So it's not about extra. I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying this because it's not about doing more. It's about doing it correct for yourself. What is correct for yourself? So it's just like, for example, when Cynthia said, instead of coming home and putting on the TV and you think you're relaxing, but it actually charges your body up further. It's coming home and actually choosing. It's more like, what choice can you make that's better for yourself instead? And so choosing to sit in the silence. For me, it's choosing to allow my body to decide if I need to meditate or to contemplate. It's choosing to, instead of kind of automatically kind of like numb out with something in my ears, taking in energy, it's to allow myself to be in quiet. So what choices can you make that are better aligned for you and the way that your body needs to rest and move away from these old paradigms of simply doing more? Melanie Ann Lair says, overdoing overdoes it. And I think it is so perfect. So what are the places that you specifically are overdoing? They're going to look different for all of us. Identify them, sit with yourself, and then share it with us. I think we can learn a lot from each other. I've learned a lot from you guys today, and these are not even suggestions for projectors. I hope that was helpful. Thank you guys for coming. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. Reminder that the podcast drops every Monday, 8 a.m. EST, here on YouTube, on my Goddess of Practicality page, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and Friday night live dive. We come live and we talk about it. We share. We ask questions. We go deeper with the topics of the podcast, and that's every Friday here, Goddess of Practicality, at 6 p.m. EST. And final notification, the draw is still going. So we are still trying to reach 100 reviews. So if you would like to be entered into a draw to win a free human design reading with me, 90-minute full human design reading with me, take a screenshot of your review on any of the podcast platforms. Email it to me at goddessofpracticality@gmail.com, and you will be entered in to win a full human design reading. I love you all. Happy Friday. Have a magical weekend. And I hope to see you later. Bye. See you guys.